and welcome to the Asylum, the month of Dismember. I'm your host, Don, and with me today, as almost always, is my co-host, Jeremiah.
And I'm still sick. I actually sound worse than I did last time, and I'm coughing more than I did last time.
Yeah, fortunately, you can't get sick through Skype, so we should be good.
I'll give you strep through the microphone.
Oh, please don't. I have enough health issues as it is. Anywho,
But for a movie that's about the month of Dismember, this movie doesn't really have that many dismemberments.
Yeah, it doesn't really fit into our month of Dismember motif that we're going for. However, it is the month of Dismember, and I'm still going to introduce it that way. So
There's a lot of stabbies.
There's a lot of stabbies, and a couple of ball shots. Today we're going to talk about Clash of the Empires / Age of Hobbits / Age of the Underworld / Lord of the Elves / Age of Darkness by the Asylum.
This movie was called Age of Hobbits, and Warner Brothers and all the everyone but the Tolkien estate basically said no.
They're like, we're
and
not
sued them.
known for that.
And so they kept on changing names. And I don't know why half of them have these names, because there's no empires in this movie. There are no elves in this movie.
It takes place during the day, so there's not much darkness.
And it's not really in the underworld. They do go into a cave, but not really a deep one. The sunlight's there.
Yeah.
And there's no real hobbits. They're Indonesian.
Well, yeah, they're Malaysian hobbits. They are not the Tolkien-esque hobbits.
It's more like pygmies.
These are supposedly based off of the real species of subhumanoids that was discovered in Malaysia. Indonesia, thank you. That were discovered in Indonesia. For those of you who don't keep up on archaeology, which probably is a lot of us, they discovered a race of pre-modern humanoids that are like not necessarily part of the Homo sapien line that existed approximately 12,000 years ago. That were somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 feet tall. And Jeremiah has left to go die. They're somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 feet tall, and they are colloquially referred to in the science community as hobbits because scientists are nerds. So that is where the name initially came from for Age of Hobbits. And that was the argument that the Asylum tried to use in the lawsuit and subsequently lost. This is one of the few times that the Asylum has been successfully sued over using a title that was close to a title of a movie they were mockbusting. He's not back yet. So in Clash of the Lords, the Age of Hobbit Empires in the Underworld of Darkness Elves, it follows these hobbit people that are all small Indonesian people that are just kind of trying to live their lives 12,000 years ago. And whilst they're trying to live their lives, they get attacked by the Java Men, also referred to as Rockmen interchangeably throughout the movie, which is probably an oversight. But they are also humanoid. I think they're supposed to be like cavemen, maybe, that abscond with a lot of them. But our main characters, Tek, Goben, and Omi, manage to escape. And their mother, Tek's wife, Goben and Omi's mother, is a hobbit medicine woman. I think that they were kind of going with the idea that the hobbits were like the beginning of farming for the most part, because they were like out in sort of the fields, kind of gathering things when the Java men attacked. So Tech, or their mother, whose name I don't remember, Suta maybe. Yeah. We'll go with Suta. So Suta is like a medicine woman, and as they're like flying, they had dragons. The Java men had dragons. They had flying dragons, which is pretty legit, in my opinion. The special effects were um, what you would expect from a 2012 Asylum film. So they were special. Um, so they fly off. And whilst they're flying off, somehow Suta is producing medicine stones that she's dropping behind them as they go to like leave a trail so that they can hopefully get rescued. And at this point in time would be where I have Jeremiah talk, uh, but he's still not here. Uh, So she has apparently an unlimited collection of medicine stones that she is dropping behind her as they fly off. Welcome back. I have recapped the story up to the point of the Java men slash Rockmen flying off, and Suta, was that her name? Suta?
Sounds right.
Yeah, Suda dropping her unlimited supply of medicine stones. And I figured it would be your turn to take over. Uh, yeah.
So rockmen come, these racist stereotypes of buck teeth, sharpened. They look really painful.
Yeah.
Like, if you've seen the movie Warcraft, the orcs have well, they have false teeth in there, and you can tell it limits what they can do. But at least those are professionally done. These look like they either just found people with terrible teeth or they gave them terrible teeth.
It kind of looked like they bought them from like a costume store for vampires, and then just like gave them the plastic like $1 vampire teeth.
Yeah, it looked terrible.
It did.
So they take these people away, and so a family of these hobbits, um, go to follow them,
Goben,
and
Tech, Omi.
they go to follow them, and they're worried about going to the land of the giants. But as they're going, the rock people are following them because they took out one of their eyes, and they take that personally. And they do go through these rose bushes. There are thorns on them, and they say
Poison.
how these are poisonous, and so they had to cover up. So they like grab leaves or something and like hold them in front of them, while the rock people go there and they send the one with the damaged eye, who they're trying to avenge his eye for, into there first, and he just like flops over and starts convulsing and dying in the worst death I've ever seen on one of these films.
It was wonderful.
And so they're following them, and they run into where these giants are because these giants are hunting big old animals. Rhinos, I think, is the first one they fight.
The giant rhino is what we see him fighting.
It's a giant CGI rhino. And I love how they use spears, and it's just like, is it over here? I'm not sure if it's over here.
I
Or over
honestly
here.
felt that they were better at aiming the spears at the CGI monsters in this than the people with the guns in Mega Python versus Gatoroid, where they were shooting up in the air and obviously it would not be up there. Like these guys were actually like at least poking in the general direction of where this rhino would be. But okay, go on.
But it is also all filmed in Cambodia. Um, they did go to Cambodia. They couldn't get, like, they wanted Angkor Wat. They couldn't afford that, but they did get the film, on location with a few hundred extras that apparently they paid local wages to.
Ugh.
And so here's where they meet Christopher Judge and Bai Ling, who are in this movie for reasons. It's not
Amthop
like
and Layla. Leyland.
Christopher Judge, of course, is best known to be as Kratos now, but he's also from Stargate SG-1, and Bai Ling is in a lot of things. And they are giants, or humans. I'm going to call them humans.
The Hobbits refer to them as giants, and I actually sent Jeremiah a text while I was watching this, and I was just like, man, I really hope the giants are just normal people. Turns out the giants are just normal people, right? But to the Hobbits, they're giants because they're like twice their size. But yeah, they're just like regular humans, and they refer to them as humans after they finally meet them, and they refer to themselves as humans. Yeah, so they run into Amthar, who Goben saves his life. I don't remember precisely how, but he saves his life. So Amthar has a life debt.
Doesn't he hit the no, he shines the little rock thing at the
medicine stone to shine the rock
yeah.
in its side. Yeah, that's right. So they save his life. Amthar thinks that he owes them a life debt. So they take him to the human king to try to talk him into assisting them with attacking the Java men to get their family back. The human king is, I thought at the time, he was going to be the most overacted character in this movie because he is ridiculous.
He thinks he's Barbossa.
He's just ridiculous. So he's asked them what they would give him in trade, and earlier on, Goben had like taken a spear and his, what did you call it, Jeremiah? An atlatl?
Atlatl, yeah, the Aztec weapon where they have the stick to throw their javelins further.
Yeah, so he essentially did that to like show them, or he had done that earlier. So he's like, oh, we can teach you guys how to farm, and they're like, nah, we don't farm, we kill things and eat them. And he's like, okay, we could teach you about medicine. Omi's a medicine girl. And they're like, nah, we just let ourselves die. And he's like, okay, I could teach you how to throw a spear really far. And they're like, throwing spears far. Go on. So they have Amthar throw a spear and it goes a distance. And then they have Leyland throw a spear and it goes further because women are superior, apparently, when it comes to throwing javelins. And then they have, it wasn't Pesh, it was the other one, Pesh's brother.
The one who's bad at everything.
Yeah, they have a guy who's bad at everything. And he's like, all right, give me your worst spear thrower. And they're like, the guy's bad at everything. Haha, we're going to all laugh at him. So he has him throw the spear, like, initially, and it doesn't go anywhere. And he's like, all right, now trust the helping stick, because that's what Goben calls it. It's his Deus Ex Machina. It helps him with everything. So he gives him, because the Earth Mother granted it to him, I guess. So he gives him the throwing stick, or the helping stick, and he, like, hurls it, and it just goes, like, a ridiculous distance, and they never see it again. It just disappears. I like to think that it stabs some random dude that didn't see it coming. But that's me. Yeah, in the eye.
Yeah. I do find it interesting, though. So King Korm, if you look at the actors, they're all like local Cambodians. And then King Korm is Antonis Greco. Like, that's why he speaks English. Because everyone else in this movie, except for Christopher Judge and Bai Ling, are dubbed. Obviously dubbed.
Extremely obviously dubbed. It was.
So I will say this. One actor's name in this one was one of the.
Was Coda dubbed?
Coda? Yeah. Yes.
There's no way. There's no way that they got somebody to dub that guy and he was that over the top. There's no way.
One of the rock people are also called the Java men because reasons. But the Java taskmaster in the mines, the actor's name is Sothorn Sith.
That's a cool name.
And the queen, the witch queen, her name is Rakchana.
Also,
only one name.
That's cool.
And there's apparently apparently someone in here named Balrog, who's played by someone named Ka. But regardless,
cool names.
It's not funny that they show him the spear, and then the king's like,
nah.
Good spear. We're not helping you anyway.
We're still not helping you. So Amthar and Leyland, Pesh, and the guy who sucks at everything band together to assist our Hobbitses. So our Hobbitses and co head out to the Java men. They get attacked by a random Java man that Leylon takes on. Oh wait, no. First, Leylon goes blind because this is an Asylum film, and therefore has to have giant insects. So they encounter some sort of giant arachnid that shoots venom at them.
They also have a vine, a little vine that looks pathetic that's somehow wrapped around his leg, holding him steady as the spiders all come in. But they do manage to stop the spiders, and they do have stuff in there. But they have a healer who can do stuff with magic rocks.
Omi, she's our healer. She's
therefore,
the
therefore is able to heal the eyes.
Yes, but while Leylon is waiting for her eyes to heal, they get attacked by a singular Java man. She then proceeds to fight him and nail him directly in the balls with a spear, and it was hilarious.
Because he has a crab shield.
That's later. The coconut shield. So she nails this dude in the balls. They take him to the group and they start to try to interrogate him. And he's like, nah, I'm not going to tell you anything. And then he trips, hits a rock,
bashes his head against a rock. Yeah.
Immediately dies. Just gone. And the guy, this was my favorite death. The next death, my absolute favorite death in this entire movie. The guy who's worthless and useless at everything is like, don't worry, little man. I will protect you from everything. He then turns and is immediately impaled on a spike trap. Then just like, fuck.
And I didn't even see the spike. Like it's a sound effect. I don't think do you actually see the spike, or is it a sound effect and you just kind of stays there and you see a little bit of blood?
You see the spikes. But he immediately dies. Like right after. Don't worry, little man. I will protect you. Whap, dead. Fantastic. Favorite scene in the whole movie next to the coconut shield. But meanwhile, while this is happening, Suta and the rest of the captured Hobbitses are being
taken to a cave.
Yeah,
they need to work before they get eaten. Some of them get eaten on the way to the cave.
True. So then we get introduced to Kota, who is the single most overacted character in the entire movie. And I can't believe that he was dubbed, because it just seemed so natural that was. Jeremiah, I don't even know how to explain Kota. You want to give it a shot?
Unprofessional. No, he's racist crazy.
just over the top. Everything he says is, I am Kota. I will help you to not die. Kota knows.
And here's something that's kind of funny about the voice of Koto.
Oh, go on.
The voice of Koto has awards.
Does he now?
He does. And he has worked on a lot of award-winning things.
What?
And he's been a director. His main job, though, is special effects. Special effects in movies like Lord of the Rings, Star Trek. He worked on Roughnecks, the Starship Trooper Chronicles. He then decided, I want to work on other things, and he moved to the Asylum, where he started stuff like Titanic 2, Mega Shark versus Crocosaurus. And then he's like, I'm going to be bored and do real stuff like Caprica. And then he gave us the wonderful whale in Moby Dick, which we saw. Then he worked as the digital supervisor for Mega Python versus Gatoroid. Amazing effects in that. He did the zombie apocalypse special effects.
What did he win an award for?
He was on the team that did Lord of the Rings. Return of the King. Changed special effects.
You gotta.
And then he did Zombie Apocalypse. So do it this way. In 2011, we're just gonna go 2011. He worked on Mega Python versus Gatoroid, Battle of Los Angeles, Almighty Thor, 2012 Ice Age, Born Bad, Haunting in Salem, Dragon Crusaders, Three Musketeers, Zombie Apocalypse, and 11/11/11, and the Amityville Haunting. (2012), when this movie came out, where he also voice dubbed in, he worked on Two-Headed Shark Attack, Red Tails, Grim Snow White, Air Collision.
Red Tails?
Yeah. The George Lucas Tuskegee Airmen movie?
Yeah.
Yes. Grim Snow White, Air Collision, as in like the TV series, which I do like to watch. Oops, let me scroll back up. Air Collision, Fortress, American Warships, which is the one that comes before Bermuda Tentacles, Nazis at the Center of the Earth, Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies, Bikini Spring Break, Bigfoot, Visual Effects Supervisor for Bigfoot, Shark Week, Super Cyclone, Golden Winter, The Silicon Assassin Project, Hold Your Breath, Rise of the Zombies, this movie, 40 Days and 40 Nights, 12/12/12.
I got nothing. I guess the beauty of working for the Asylum is that you get a lot of creative freedom.
Here's the other thing for this. He directed this movie.
Coda must have been his favorite character. That's my guess. Coda must have been his favorite character. Coda is this weird, rapey little Hobbits that wants to save Suta, and he's just ridiculously over the top. He does that in the movie. But yeah, so we get a little bit of the Hobbitses that have been captured by the Rockmen doing things. We find out that like the Rockmen like to sacrifice somebody to the moon on the full night of a full moon, which is why Lawson hates them because that's apparently how her family died. And then we get them
His
arriving.
wife, by the way, voices the queen, the witch queen.
Nice. And then they arrive at the Rockman's hideout, and they go through a rescue mission.
Which involves a perfectly timed spear throw from Christopher Judge into the eyeball, or is it the forehead? Forehead of the queen right off the bat.
Perfectly timed.
And then they can just walk out of there, and they do. And then Rockmen come out and aren't as aggressive as it, because they're just kind of swinging at each other, and there's like, you hear stabbing noises, but no one actually gets stabbed.
Oh wait, we didn't talk about the other best kill, because that happens while they're infiltrating.
Well, no, I'm just gonna talk about the one with the dragons next.
Oh, you're talking about before that one. Whilst they are infiltrating the Java Men cave, Lawson has a one-on-one duel with a Rockman. And whilst they are dueling, she tries her patented, I'm going to hit you directly in the balls with a spear technique. But he is wearing a coconut shield, which is what he calls it. He's got like a crab on between his legs, essentially, that she nails with it, and obviously it doesn't do anything. And he's like, ah, ha, ha. So then she stabs him in the face with a spear. But
and the most obvious, I stabbed on the side of your head.
Yeah, so it's like,
I've ever seen.
This is him, and here we go. Boom. Phallic symbol. Oh, I've been stabbed in the face. And you can see the spear moving as she's holding it.
But when they escape, though, then this rock people, the Java men, go. It's weird. They call the Java men, but they don't call them that in the movie. They call them like rock people.
Rockmen.
And then they go to get their dragons, and then they fly up, and then I think the production budget ran out because like the dragons are kind of like swarming in the most random like swarm in the sky. One of them even hits the cliff, and then they come down one at a time, and they grab one of the other characters,
The other human.
bite him,
Yep.
and then after they bite him, they fly him there, drop him. He splatters against the cliff, goes down, rolls, and then like splatters on the ground. Everyone's like,
which is
and then
the response.
And then they come down and they're about to get him, and then a whole ton of spears come as all the humans come to join the battle in what is probably the worst big battle I've ever seen, because they charge each other and then they're just like, it's like they were told, charge each other and then just swing things and we'll figure it out. And it looks like they're just like,
and then everybody, the human king dies, but we don't get to see it happen. He dies off screen.
Oh, I thought I missed something because I was like, what? He down? Did I blink?
All of a sudden is dying, and there's like no epic fight or anything where he gets stabbed. He's just dying. And so he appoints Amthar as the new human king, and they're going to usher in a new world of human and hobbits' coexisting.
And half the hobbits stay with them because they think they're better for them now. And their parents, they stay there. They aren't. It's almost like the parents are like, oh, perfect way to get them out. Stay here. Empty nest. Go away.
Yeah. We don't need you anymore, Goben.
And right at the very end, Gabon is making a musical instrument, a new tool. And the main rock man this whole time gets up from the pile of bodies. He's not dead. He's coming up behind him. He's about to get him. And suddenly that musical instrument is now a bow, and an arrow goes straight through his eye.
Because Goben he's the Deus Ex Machina. He's fantastic.
His aim is amazing.
It's immaculate. He nails that one dude in the eye. He's got, the vines, and he's got his helper stick, and Earth Mother provides, Earth Mother provides.
And
okay, so that's the movie. Yeah.
So a couple things. Costume-wise, you could tell they're in Cambodia, but I will say this: Bai Ling's costume looked like it was like one costume malfunction away from her boobs just flying out, because she has way too big of a boobs just to let them flop around in that little of clothing.
True.
That could not have been comfortable.
Yeah.
I imagine she burned a lot.
Yes.
They used a lot of locals, which you could tell. As I said, all the Rockmen I think are pretty much racial stereotypes that are maybe uncomfortable.
So there was genuine effort put into this movie to try to make it something that people would want to watch.
But I'm not sure why they called it Age of Hobbits and invited what they did on themselves, because it has nothing really to do with Lord of the Rings. The plot's not similar in any way, shape, or form. There's no elves in this. Why do they call it Lord of the Elves?
Because they were trying to cash in on The Hobbit. That's what they do. It's their business model.
Yeah, I know. It's just they could have avoided so much law, but they should have known they were going to draw a lawsuit.
Yeah, you can't use the word hobbits. Like, you just can't. Like, it is a creation of J.R.R. Tolkien, and anybody who's not from the Tolkien estate or Warner Brothers, or what's the other company?
There's another guy who owns a lot of the rights. He's the one who just sold video game rights. But like, unless you were part of the groups that actually own rights, you're not going to do it, because they're very protective of those rights. You
cannot use the word hobbit. You can't. Gary Gygax tried and was sued by the Tolkien estate for naming halflings hobbits. That's why in D&D they're halflings. You cannot use that word. It's just not allowed. Period.
You can use orcs because he didn't invent them. You can use elves because he didn't invent them. But they don't use orcs or elves in this one. In fact, it's not even a fantasy. They're trying to call it ancient history when dragons were still around.
Yes. But yeah, like I was saying, you can tell that this was a legit attempt to make a movie. It's just it didn't succeed. They did not. They there's just so much that was just the racial stereotypes, the dubbing, the fact that they paid $10 for all of the actors that weren't biling, and Christopher
10
Judge
per day.
per day.
And there's
$10.
actual write-up about this article. This is one of the few ones where a Cambodian newspaper in
Wrote-
English actually wrote a lot about this movie because it's filming in Cambodia. It was interesting enough. And they
Chris,
talked about,
Christopher
you
Judge
know,
said
talk,
he felt like his children would really appreciate this movie.
yep. And I mean, look at some of the stuff. This movie had a $500,000 budget, is what they said. They couldn't film on locations they wanted to because, well, clearly they couldn't. Um,
Like,
the producer of this movie is apparently a former football player.
yep.
But they were able to do things that they couldn't do here. They were able to, what was it? They shored up a road, cut off a road, and went over a railway track and transported everyone, cutting down signs for $50. You can't do that
No, absolutely not.
in other places. They barely had they didn't have a big crew. They hired a lot of extras.
They had to phonetically teach the words to the majority of the actors because they didn't speak English. So they would just speak the line slowly until they got the movements right and the sounds, with the intention of dubbing over them afterward, which is what they did.
And Christopher Judge being the quote unquote star, his perks where he had someone carrying an umbrella for him. He could have his cigarettes and he could spend time in the AC controlled air conditioned van. Yeah, it's interesting. This is one of the few ones. We'll actually link the article in the thing because it's one of the few Asylum anything that I've seen like having made it, which is fascinating.
It shows you how Asylum has been able to make money because they find these kind of places where they can, cut some costs a little bit to make a movie that will make $1 million.
Let me share you guys the article.
Yeah. From the
Cambodian Daily, an actual newspaper article, that showed actual film. These are all actual really short people. Like they don't necessarily look it in the shot until you see them next to Christopher Judge. It's not just that Christopher Judge is tall.
Yeah, that's Tech Goben, and
no other pictures in here. But yeah, it's an actual article from them, and filming on location is always a good thing.
Yeah, for real. This is it's a movie.
And there's not really any photos on here. Like all the photos in IMDb are like covers. Like, what are the elves? There's no elves in this.
They're just the different movie posters with different titles. That's what all the photos are.
Clash of the Empires. There's no empires in this. Age of the Hobbits. Look at this arm. There's this thing on the bottom. Like, I suppose that did happen in this movie. But who's the one in the robe?
No idea. There was never a robe in this entire movie.
And no dragons blew fire.
But yeah, so on our sliding scale.
And it's in Blu-ray.
Yeah, Jesus. Why? In our sliding scale of Asylum films, I would put this underneath War of the Worlds 2.
That's a decent spot.
It's watchable, but I wouldn't watch it except to talk about it on this channel.
That's a good spot for it. It's watchable. The scenery is pretty.
Yeah, the scenery is actually gorgeous.
But I also wouldn't recommend it to people outside of the fact that it's called Age of the Hobbits, and it got sued out of existence. And so there's that. It's the one time Asylum went too far.
Yeah, it's like,
and that's kind of shocking.
It's like how I only tell people to see Blood Rain because Blood Rain has the critically acclaimed worst sex scene of all time. It's just like
how do you get less turned on by watching Christina Loken naked?
I know, right? How is that even possible?
But this movie, this movie has a good story behind it because, what happened, but it's not a good movie. And
but the scenery was gorgeous, and the music actually wasn't bad.
and none of the acting, like the voice. I will say this: while the dubbing was pretty bad, like that, as far as the acting goes, I don't think any of the like on set stuff looked bad at all.
They did perfectly well for people who had very little movie acting experience. According to that article that Jeremiah is going to link, most of the little people that they hired actually had acting experience because they were like performers and like local performers, and
some were even rock stars.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So like the acting was not terrible. The dubbing was. But the acting wasn't bad. The music's actually fairly good for what you were getting. And the scenery's gorgeous. It's just they kind of phoned it in a little bit, especially the CGI. But they had a fun.
And it's written by Eric Forsberg, who has written too many of these movies. You know, he wrote Monster, he wrote War of the Worlds 2, he wrote Mega Piranha.
He wrote Transmorphers?
No. He didn't write very many more Asylum movies after this one. Like,
that's
Dragons of Camelot. But you know, he wrote a lot of these ones, and
that was Lord of the Clash of the. It was the Clash of the Lords, the Age of the Hobbit Empires, and the Underworld Darkness Elves.
Yeah, what you said.
I have a sticky note.
Let's try spinning this.
Let's see what we get. Wheel of
Asylum.
Asylum.
Sex pot, I'm gonna riot.
Turn. Tell us the movie that we shall burn.
The same guy wrote Sex Pot.
Sherlock Holmes. Ooh, this is gonna be great.